Welcome you all. Today I am going to discuss overversion. What is overversion, overtend, overs, rules of overversion, and different type of overversion of different type of proposition A, E, I, O. So first I will discuss what is overversion. Overversion is a form of immediate deductive inference. That means overversion is a immediate deductive inference where the predicate of the conclusion is the contradictory of the predicate of the premise. That means in the premise, the predicate of the premise is changed in conclusion. The subject being the same, subject same rahiba in the premise. The quality of the conclusion is the opposite of the quality of the premise. Quality opposite rahiba and quantity is same in both the premise. Quantity both premise and conclusion is same rahiba. It also satisfy the principle of distribution of the term. यह satisfy करुथुबा distribution principle को. इटा example रे भलो की बुझी हबा. So overversion is a deductive inference where the predicate of the conclusion is the contradictory. Here I have taken an example. Here example is all S is P. In this example it is premise. The premise is called overtend and conclusion is called overs. So in this example all S is P. A premise re एटा होची subject, ये हला predicate. तेणु इठी दिया जायछि the predicate of the conclusion is the contradictory of the predicate of the premise. एठी predicate जहा अछि premise रे conclusion ने तार contradiction हबो, ता contradictory हबो. जदि एठी P अछि एठी not P हबो. Then the subject be same. एठी subject S अछि, एठी सब्जेक्ट मध्ये से एस रहइबो, किछि चेंज हबो नाही. केवल प्रेडिकेट टी प्रेमिस रे बा ओवरटेंड रे जहा थिबो कंक्लूजन ने तार कॉन्ट्राडिक्शन हबो एवं सब्जेक्ट जहा थिबो से रहइबो, सेम रहइबो. The quality of the conclusion is the opposite of the quality of the premise. Quality opposite रहइबो. एठी फर्स्ट ओवरटेंड रे हमर क्वालिटी अछि positive, that means affirmative अछि. A proposition universal affirmative, E proposition universal negative. That means first proposition affirmative अछि, conclusion टी negative रहइबो. That means quality एठी change हैला. And the quantity is same. एठी quantity केमति same हैला. एठी A proposition, E proposition, A and E proposition are universal. तेणु यार quantity same अछि. सेमते हमें देखिबा example नै कि the premise and conclusion all S is P and no S is not P. So the overversion of A proposition is E. Next, what is overtend? Overtend, the premise of the overversion is called overtend and the conclusion of overversion is called overs. There are 4 rules in overversion. The rules are: first rules, the subject of the overtend becomes the subject of the overs and the contradictory of the predicate of the overtend becomes the predicate of the overs. That means overtend रे subject जहा अछि overs रे सेया रहइबो, किंतु predicate overtend रे जहा अछि overs रे तार contradictory रहइबो. जेमति कि P जदि अछि, P रो contradictory हला not P. Then second rule, the quality of the overs is the opposite of the quality of the overtend. Quality opposite रहिबो. जदि premise अछि affirmative, conclusion हवा negative. जदि premise अछि negative, conclusion हवा affirmative. That means the quality of the overs is opposite of the quality of overtend. Rule number 3, the quantity is same. Quantity हला universal and particular. Quantity जदि universal थिबो premise रे conclusion मध्ये universal रहिबो. सेमिति quantity जदि particular थिबो premise रे conclusion मध्ये particular रहिबो. Rule number 4, the term which is not distributed in the overtone is not distributed in the obverse. It is called the principle of distribution of term. जो term टी conclusion ने distribute होई नथिबो ताहा premise रे मध्य distribute हबो नाही. जो term टी obverse रे distribute होई नथिबो ताहा overtone रे मध्य distribute हबो नाही. This is the principle of distribution. Here I have written overtone and obverse. A proposition or obverse E proposition obverse A proposition I O एवं O proposition I. How is it possible? Let's discuss one by one. Then the overversion of A proposition. A proposition is all S is P. It is the overtone. A proposition na overversion E proposition haba. No S is not P. Here subject is the same in overtone and obverse, and predicate is contradiction of the overtone. P ro contradiction haba not P. Then quality and quantity. Quality change haba. Eta affirmative अछि, eta negative हला एवं यह क्वांटिटी सेम रहिबो. एटा यूनिवर्सल अछि, एटा यूनिवर्सल रहला. Similarly एई एग्जांपल में मते शेयर रहिछि ऑल मेन आर मोर्टल, नो मेन इज नॉन मोर्टल. एठी मेन हला सब्जेक्ट, ये भी अच्छी सब्जेक्ट सेम रहिला. मोर्टल रो कॉन्ट्राडिक्शन हला नॉन मोर्टल एवं क्वालिटी एंड क्वांटिटी. क्वालिटी चेंज रहिछि, एटा अफर्मेटिव अछि, ये नेगेटिव अछि एवं क्वांटिटी बोथ आर यूनिवर्सल. Here the overversion of A proposition is E proposition. The subject of overtone becomes the subject of obverse, and the contradictory of the predicate of the overtone becomes the predicate of obverse. Quality of the obverse is opposite of the quality of the overtone, and the quantity is same, and it satisfies the principle of distribution. Next, the overversion of E proposition. The overversion of E proposition is A. Here I have written E proposition no S is P, and obverse is A proposition all S is not P. Subject same रहिछि, predicate P एटी not P contradiction हैछि एवं quality and quantity. Quality change अछि, एटी negative अछि, एटी affirmative अछि. Then quantity same अछि, both are universal proposition. Similarly एठी भी सेया हैछि, no man is perfect, all men are not perfect. एठी overtone and obverse E proposition A proposition. एठी मध्य subject same अछि एवं predicate contradiction अछि. एठी predicate perfect रो contradiction non perfect, and quality and quantity. Quality change अछि, E proposition negative, A proposition affirmative, and both are universal. Here the obversion of E proposition is A proposition. It satisfies all the rules of overversion. Then obversion of I proposition. I proposition is sum S is P. Overtone and obverse. Obverse is O proposition. Sum S is not dash P. Here subject is same both in overtone and obverse, and predicate is P, and not P is the contradiction. Not P is the contradiction of P. Then quality and quantity. Quality change हैछि, P proposition is affirmative and O proposition is negative, and quantity is same, both are particular. So the here the obversion of I proposition is O proposition, and it satisfies all the 4 rules of overversion. Then O proposition. O proposition is sum S is not P. It is overtone, and obverse will be I proposition. Sum S is not P. Here subject same in overtone and obverse, and in predicate P, and contradiction not P. And quality and quantity. Quality change and quantity same रहिबो. So quality quantity same अछि, both are particular, and O proposition is negative, I proposition is affirmative. Similarly some men are not wise, some men are not dash wise. It is overtailed and it is overse. So here the overversion of O proposition is I proposition and it satisfies all the force rule of overversion. This is all about